There is a man who earns $80,000 a year. One weekend, he drives 45 minutes across the city just to save $12 on a car part. Add the waiting time, add the drive back. Nearly 3 hours, gone. If you do the cold math, he just spent $80 of his time value to save $12. But the worst part isn't the number. The worst part is this. He tells the story like it was a victory, like proof of his discipline. But that isn't discipline. That is a man measuring his life with the wrong currency. And he doesn't even know it. Here's what makes it more dangerous. He isn't a rare case. He is the standard. Society taught you a lie when you were very young. A lie repeated so many times. It started to sound like a law of nature. Time is money. It sounds wise. It sounds logical. But the truth is this. It's a sophisticated poison. An idea that has quietly manufactured poverty. Not poverty of money, but poverty of power. It creates people who believe they are living responsibly, when in reality, they are selling their lives 1 hour at a time, one small decision at a time, one invisible trade-off after another. This video is not about saving spare change, not financial tips, not social media millionaire mindset advice. This is something else, the Machiavellian philosophy of financial power. Not how to make money, but how to stop being controlled by money. If all you want is to display wealth, to get attention, to get validation, then this video is not for you. But if you want to understand how people with real power think, if you want to build an invisible empire, a system you control while the crowd is still chasing numbers, then stay. Because what we're about to talk about, 99% will never see. This is the first truth that will break almost everything you've been taught to believe. Time is not money. Time is worth thousands of times more than money. If you lose money, you can earn it back. If you lose an opportunity, you can create another one. But if you lose time, there are no refunds, no extensions, no second chances. And here's something strange. Most men know exactly their annual salary, but very few know the real value of their time. You think you make $36 an hour? Calculate it again. Add the extra 90 minutes of commuting every day. Add the hours checking emails after work. Add the evenings when you're not working. But you're not really living either, because your mind is still trapped in work pressure. You think you work 40 hours a week, but in reality, your job is taking nearly 60 hours of your life. And when you divide the numbers again, your real hourly rate is no longer $36. It becomes spare change. But here's the dangerous part. When you spend 3 hours on a weekend to save a few dozen dollars, you think you're being smart. But in reality, you are pricing your life too low. You are telling the world, my time isn't worth much. People with real power don't think like that. They don't see time as something to sell. They see it as a strategic resource. Time to think, time to decide, time to build systems, time to create leverage. Everything else, they find a way to delegate. Not because they are arrogant, not because they are lazy, but because they understand one cold truth. Doing low-value work yourself is a form of self-sabotage. Not because the work is small, but because it pulls you away from the position where you can create real value. Every time you sell your time cheaply, you don't just lose a few hours. You train yourself to believe that is your value. And over time, That belief becomes your identity, and that identity becomes your limit. If there is one thing you should stop doing today, it is selling your life for small gains. So right now, write this in the comments. I stopped selling my life cheaply. Not to tell others, but so you can hear yourself say it. The second law of money, according to Machiavellian philosophy, is this: visible wealth is a critical vulnerability. The crowd believes wealth must be seen: a luxury car, an expensive watch, an extravagant vacation posted on Instagram. But they don't realize something. Attention always has a price, and sometimes it's a trap. When you display your wealth, you are turning on a lighthouse, and that lighthouse doesn't just attract admiration. It attracts people who suddenly need to borrow money, opportunists, fake relationships, and the most dangerous thing, envy. Few people say this, but envy is the biggest tax on visible success. When people see your assets, they start measuring you. When they measure you, they understand you. And when they understand you, they know how to compete with you. Displayed success creates a map for your competitors. People who truly understand power don't play that game. They follow a different principle, the ghost principle. They don't need to impress. They don't need to prove. They don't need to perform. They drive normal cars, wear clothes without logos, no price signals, no status announcements. From the outside, they look completely ordinary. Sometimes even a little boring. The people around them won't understand. Colleagues with the same salary will buy new cars, will spend to prove something, and they will laugh. They'll call them cheap. They'll call them unambitious. Let them laugh. Because the person who understands the game doesn't need to win in the eyes of the crowd. He looks at that $70,000 car, not with envy, but with calmness, maybe even a little pity. Because he sees what others don't see. It's not just a car. It's an invoice for insecurity, a receipt for the need for validation, a marketing victory over human psychology. While the crowd buys symbols of wealth, the ghost buys power. Power nobody sees. Power nobody can measure. Power nobody talks about. Assets, equity, income-producing systems, things that don't impress but create control. And here is the big difference. The crowd buys things that make them look rich. The ghost buys things that make them become rich. He can sit in a room where nobody notices him. But if someone truly understands, they will realize he is not just in the room. He might be the one who owns it. If you understand this principle, write this in the comments. Invisibility is my armor. Not so others can see it, but so you remember, real power rarely needs to be seen. Face the third ruthless surgery. Saving money to become rich is a dead strategy. This is what society taught you. Work hard, save money, put it in the bank, wait. But let's do the cold math. If you save $100 a month, you would need more than 800 years to reach $1 million. Even if you save $1,000 a month, you would still need over 80 years. 80 years. And by then, you won't have time left to live. And even if you reach that number, inflation has quietly taken most of its value. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Saving does not create power. It only creates a feeling of safety, a fragile feeling of safety, until the system changes, until the economy shifts, until something outside your control happens. And then, that so-called safety disappears. If there is one word that people who understand power are always cautious about, it is this: dependence. Dependence is the enemy of power. If you only have one source of income, you don't have security. You have concentrated risk. If one person, one company, one decision can cut off your income, then they hold the power. They don't have to say it, but it is very real. Your boss has power not because he is smarter, but because he controls your financial lifeline. And that is why people who understand the game don't build one pillar. They build a fortress, a citadel of incomes. An income fortress, a system with many legs, like a spider. If one leg breaks, the fortress still stands. Dividends, real estate, business systems, cash-flowing assets, not to show off, but to reduce dependence. This is the real turning point. The moment you have income that does not require your presence, you begin buying back your freedom. Not emotional freedom, real freedom. You are no longer afraid of losing your job. You no longer have to tolerate toxic environments. You no longer have to smile at people you don't respect. You no longer have to negotiate from a weak position. Because when you don't need, you are no longer easy to control. And that is when power shifts, not loudly, but permanently. Other people's power over you begins to shrink until it becomes zero. If you want to think like someone who builds power, remember this: don't build a warehouse, build a fortress. If you understand that, write this in the comments. I build a fortress, not a warehouse. Not to tell others, but to remind yourself, you are building systems, not just making money. The fourth principle that separates those who hold power from the crowd is leverage. This is where the real game changes. Most people are proud of being busy. I'm doing a lot. I'm grinding. I'm trying hard. They say it like a badge of honor. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Being busy is not a strategy. It is often just distraction disguised as progress. A man digging a trench with a shovel works very hard, but the man who owns the excavator rental company is the one building wealth. Here is the difference few people talk about. Power does not come from how much you do. It comes from how much you control, not from direct labor, but from systems, from leverage, from the ability to have value created, even when you are not present. Your mission is not just to work inside the engine room. Your mission is to learn how to step onto the command deck, to see the entire system, and to direct where it moves. And if you want to understand real power, you must also abandon another illusion: crowd-style networking. They think networking means collect as many people as possible. More followers is better. More business cards is better. But here is the truth. That is just noise. A loud crowd and a weak one. People who understand power build something different. A silent network, a quiet network. Not big, but deep. Not loud, but heavy with value. Not public, but extremely valuable. Life-changing deals do not happen on social media. They happen at private dinners, in closed conversations, on phone calls no one knows about. You don't show off who you know. You don't try to impress. You don't beg for opportunities. You do something else. You become valuable. Silently, consistently. No announcement needed. And over time, people with real position will find you. Not because you chased them, but because value always attracts value. 1,000 shallow connections are not worth 5 true allies. People who understand how you think, People who see your value. People who don't need explanations. This is the real difference. The crowd looks for an audience. People who understand power build alliances. If you want to think like someone who builds leverage, remember this. Don't chase attention. Build value, and let the network form around it. If you understand that, write this in the comments. I don't look for an audience. I build a leverage network. Not so others can read it, but so you remember, you are playing a different game. We are approaching the breaking point, where all Machiavellian principles converge into one single objective: not to become important, not to become indispensable, but to become unnecessary. Unnecessary to the very system you built. This is the paradox very few people understand. Most men want to become the problem solver, the one everything depends on. If they stop, everything stops. And they call that importance. But the truth is, that is not power. That is reverse dependence. They don't own the system. The system owns them. They are not free. They are just hostages of what they built. The person who truly understands the game lets go of that ego. He does not try to become irreplaceable. He designs himself to be able to leave. He builds systems, then fires himself. This is the real definition of power. When everything continues to operate, even when you are not there. This is also where you must change how you see wealth. Because real wealth is not buying whatever you want. That is just consumption. Real wealth is time. A Tuesday morning, when you don't have to go anywhere. No permission needed. No explanations required. No clocking in. Simply yours. If you want to measure your freedom, don't ask how much you earn. Ask, how much do you need to live? This is what's called your freedom number, the freedom number. Your basic living expenses. If that number is $3,500, and you build a system that pays you $3,500 every month, without your presence, without selling your time, without needing permission to work, then the truth is, you have escaped the game most people are trapped in. Because from that moment, you are no longer forced to work. You get to choose to work, and choice is power. This world is designed to automatically take your money. Rent, bills, insurance, taxes, everything runs automatically. So people who understand the game reverse it. They build systems that make money flow toward them automatically. Not through luck, through design. This is the real transition. You stop being someone who sells time. You become an architect of systems. And when you change how you see yourself, the world changes how it treats you. Not because of magic, not because of motivation, but because you changed your role from worker to designer. And when you step into that role, the world is forced to rearrange itself, not to help you, but because you are no longer playing by the old rules. If you understand this, write this in the comments. My standard is absolute freedom, not to prove anything, but to remind yourself, you are building freedom, not just building income. Inspiration, without action, is just entertainment. A form of cheap entertainment. Many people will watch this video, nod their heads, feel awakened. Then 10 minutes later, open their phone, return to old habits, return to the cycle of selling their time, like an unconscious reflex. That is not circumstance. That is a choice. And that is always the choice of the weak. But if you are still here, then maybe something has already changed. The way you see things, the way you see yourself. So do one thing, not tomorrow. Right now. Take a piece of paper. Write down your freedom number. Your freedom number. The minimum amount you need to survive. Not to be rich, just to be free. Then, look at every income source you currently have and ask one very cold question. If I disappeared tomorrow, would this income continue to flow? If the answer is no, then you just found your mission, your battlefield for the next 12 months. Not to work more, but to build systems, not to try harder, but to think differently. The weaker version of you found this channel by accident, but the stronger version of you stayed for a reason. If you want to keep building that version, subscribe to the channel, not to support me, but to remind yourself you are walking a different path. And if you want to mark this moment, leave a commitment in the comments. I refuse to be a pawn. I am the one who controls the board, not for others to read. Just so you remember, you decided. And from here, don't talk too much about what you will do. Just start, quietly, systematically. No announcements needed. Build your fortress in silence. And one day, let the world wonder how you did it.